Yo, does the NHL kind of stink? Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, live from the Xfinity studio. A little bit of a different studio here for us, and presented by Bet365. It's another Avalanche off day, 3 in a row for the Avs. It's been a while since they've had this much time off, but that doesn't mean things aren't happening. Bailey and Rudo coming to you live to break it all down. We can start with the news of the day, which is not good news, unfortunately. When it rains, it pours on the injury bug front for the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, all the injuries remain the same. If you're looking for a silver lining, Bednar said he's very positive and hopeful that O'Connor will return at some point this season. So take that however you want to take it. But Ross Colton also added to the injury list, listed day-to-day with an upper body injury. Doesn't sound very serious, even potential that he could play tomorrow, but nonetheless, an injury there, as our injury report is brought to you by Common Spirits. Head on over to mountain.commonspirit.org to make sure you're taking care of your health, as they are the official healthcare of the Colorado or of the Denver Broncos. Bailey, is something weird going on? Because Mackenzie Blackwood was hurt in practice, or rather not in a game situation, and now Ross Colton, same thing. Are these just freak things?
I hope so. I can't imagine why else the Colorado Avalanche would be getting hit as hard as they are at this point in the year. It's weirdness. I don't know what to call it, but that's what it has to be. Yeah. I can't imagine the hockey gods hate the Colorado Avalanche that much to where it's all raining down right now.
Sometimes I wonder. Sometimes I wonder.
Right.
It really has been a remarkably healthy season for the Avs. It's just unfortunate when you start seeing these injuries stack up in short succession, one after the other. And now Blackwood obviously did come back off of that injury list, so it's nice to get him back in goal. But you're starting to look at a forward core that's feeling a little bit thin now, right? Landeskog out, Kiviranta's been out for a while, and now adding Colton to that list with LOC, who's been out all season. You've gone from a full 12 forwards that you trust all 12 of to that fourth line is kind of just the Colorado Eagles, right?
Especially when you consider the lack of trust that Bednar...
Muted. Oh, Tiff muted you on my end. My bad.
Especially when you consider the lack of trust that already exists for a guy like Zakhar Bardakov on Jared Bednar's front too. And the fact that he's spearheading that fourth line gives you, I think, a little less faith in how that's rolling too. In those games where, you're head to head with an opponent and you're looking for that extra goal and that shortening of the bench happens. It's already going to happen with that fourth line, but even then you see them get maybe 1 shift, 2 shifts just to kind of lighten that load a little bit more. And now there's even less trust added onto there, especially considering what Jared Bednar's looking to get out of that fourth line. So that's what's really up in the air for me personally.
The other side of this is the top end of it. How do you balance what the Avs top 6 look like? Because we saw Colton doing some work there with Landeskog out of the lineup. Obviously, it's been a mix, but it's not necessarily as simple as next guy up plays wing on the second line, right? The Avs have flexed guys up and down the top 2 lines. Is there something specific you'd like to see them try, or are you comfortable just putting all your eggs into the basket of a strong top line and whoever fills the roles?
It's going to come down to that second part of that for me too, especially when you're looking at that much flexibility, not knowing who's going to be on that fourth line any given game day. you got to do what works, right? And we've seen a Bednar flex things around a lot during games too. So oftentimes what we see on the starting roster is not what we see toward the end of a game.
True.
And if that's going to be what it takes to find little sparks, if your top line's rolling and working, I don't imagine Bednar does anything to change that up, but there's no telling what could happen with the bottom nine and how that rolls and works out too. So it's a mixed bag with this. Fortunately, it sounds like you're hopefully going to get a Ross Colton back. He's not sure, but that's
could miss
he sounds very hopeful. Yeah, sounds very hopeful about it. So I'm not as worried as I was at the beginning of a Gabe Landeskog injury or a Devon Taves type injury, but it's going to be business as usual for a guy like Jared Bednar, who's changing up the lineup as it is. So.
Unfortunately, very used to having to deal with this problem is Jared Bednar. So not his first rodeo on that front. I don't know that.
Not at all.
I'm not overly concerned with any of this. It just is a little bit frustrating that you look at a 3-day break that the Avs finally get after a torturous schedule. You feel like guys should be starting to come back, and then you end up losing as many guys. It doesn't feel good.
It just makes my heart hurt just a little bit knowing that they got through this 3-day break. They had the day off yesterday, and all of a sudden you get into the first full practice in a bit, and all of a sudden Ross Colton's nowhere to be found. So I love the breaks for the Avalanche. They don't see very many of them, as you said, but knowing that that's what was kind of waiting for the Avs at the end of it is a little, it sucks. But you hope, as you know, Ross Colton hopefully plays tomorrow and adds some of that juice to the top six as he has. You hope that he comes back and he's able to find something, right? Because the streak has to end at some point.
Eventually, it does.
You hope.
Either that or you're not in the NHL for that much longer. One of the two things ends up happening.
Maybe not on this team.
Fair enough. That's the bar is quite a bit higher, but I mean, I did want to transition into that a little bit because I think obviously we're an Avalanche podcast. We focus on things through the Avalanche, but we've looked at the standings so much through the Avalanche point of view, through them being at the top of the division and both other teams chasing them being in their division. And while the Avs do have a significant, meaningful lead on those teams, I do think it skews our view of the standings of the NHL as a whole. So I wanted to go through the rest of that. We're over the halfway point of the season now. There's a lot more confidence in teams being who they are, while there's still plenty of room for jockeying. Just to set the stage here, and we can do the West first. Yeah, you have Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota at the top. The next closest team is Vegas, that sits at 56 points. The next closest team in the Central is Utah, that sits at 50 points, 24 points behind Colorado, and Colorado has multiple games in hand on them. So while they're not necessarily in striking distance of catching Colorado by any stretch, what they are in striking distance of is a wild card spot. And I get it. If you feel like it's too early to start talking about potential playoff opponents, I understand. There's a lot of hockey left. But the reality is things are pretty well locked up for Colorado, barring catastrophe. If the playoffs were to start today, the Avs would get San Jose in round one of the playoffs. Now, other teams that are in the mix for these wild card spots, you have Utah, you have San Jose, you have Seattle, and you have LA. You also have Nashville and Anaheim as like teams on the outside. Bailey, is there a particular team today you would like to see the Avs play in round one?
I mean, I feel like the obvious answer is the San Jose Sharks, right?
Yeah.
It seemed like not just for the fact that I know you and I are big on the Macklin Celebrini train. So watching that kind of top end matchup versus a Nathan McKinnon, seeing those two guys go head to head is always kind of a fun storyline from a writer's point of view. But it's a team that obviously it's very different from last playoffs, right? Where it's not necessarily being thrown into the deep end of hockey where you're getting this, star-studded, really good team versus another really good team. And not just take away from the San Jose Sharks and saying they're not good. Obviously, I mean, they've taken huge strides to get where they are this year. But at the same time, it's
Hi, Kitty.
Cats joining the party. But yeah, it's a way for the Avalanche to kind of ease into what they're doing with their playoff run this year, and a way for them to get used to playoff hockey before some of those bigger matchups come into stride. It's a team you hope the Avalanche on paper can take care of in stride, easing your way in as opposed to cannonballing into the deep end of playoff hockey.
Yeah, I'd much prefer. I mean, no team's an easy out. The playoffs are the playoffs for a reason. No. A San Jose in round one compared to a Dallas in round one like last year are two very, very different conversations. So
there's also something for me too in looking at playoff experience, right? And Colorado has a lot of that, especially in the last couple years. And San Jose does not have much to go off of here recently. So there is that, having that upper hand on San Jose as well, and making them an ideal, let's ease into this type of opponent for me.
Again, I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but potential revenge tour strategy here for the Colorado in the playoffs. San Jose beat them in a game 7 a long time ago before they were real contenders. Dallas, enough said for round 2. And then round 3 could be Vegas, who beat them in a second round years ago. So it could be the redemption tour could be the lineup of the playoffs now. Is that a little bit of wish casting for me halfway through the season? Definitely. But those are the types of storylines that, regardless of myself, that's what the NHL wants, right? Those are the types of things they want to see to help build drama and build an audience of what is widely considered to be the best playoffs in the world. Are we lucky enough to actually get something like that this year?
I hope so, but it's also the wild card race for the West is somewhat similar to what the entire playoff run looks like for the East, where it does come down to points. And that's what's very interesting about the storyline for the playoffs this year is that usually by Thanksgiving, like you look at the league and you're like, okay, we can get a good idea of what our playoff race is going to look like. And for the West, for the most part, you have that nailed down, especially where the Central is concerned. But
for sure.
This wild card race is really, really interesting because you have the Los Angeles Kings as riding the coattails of San Jose. You've got a Nashville Predators trying to make some sort of push. The Anaheim Ducks obviously want to be part of that conversation as well. So it's going to be tight. There's no way of knowing, especially when it's a matter of 5 points, who could occupy those spots at the end of the year.
It definitely can turn on a dime. I also wanted to give a little bit of context. The Avs have lost 3 of their last 5. That is a statement of fact, but even in that stretch of hockey, when you look at the entire West in the last 10 games, do you know who has the best record?
Tell me.
It's the Colorado Avalanche. In the West, the Avs are 7-2-1 in their last 10. The only team that comes close is Seattle at 6-1-3, and San Jose at 6-4. So this has arguably been the worst stretch of hockey the Avs have played this year. And it still has them set up as the best team in the West.
No, and this is what a team technically is supposed to look like when they're not going God mode on all of their opponents through the first half of the season. This is the kind of hockey we're used to. Like, obviously you don't like seeing your team lose. Like that part sucks, but it's a normal looking hockey team. Your hockey team, you're not meant to go and win 10 of 10 2 times in a season. Like that doesn't happen very often. And we've been so blessed to see the iteration of the Colorado Avalanche that we have through 40 games. But we're starting to see a change in that trend. Again, that adversity, that, change in pace just a little bit. They're coming back down to earth. But you're also looking at some of those underlying numbers and realizing what they're doing is still kind of sustainable hockey. They still have the ability to win games against tough opponents, even with a Gabriel Landeskog, even with a Devon Toews missing. So it shouldn't, knowing that they've lost 3 of their last 5, shouldn't necessarily be bringing other people down on this team. Like, this is still, in all seriousness, a very competitive, very high octane hockey team. Like there is no worry about what they've been able to do and being able to continue that for the rest of the season.
For sure. It's funny. They just, even when you're looking for reasons to doom about this team this year, that things crop up that it's like, they're actually just better than everybody else. And as always, the playoffs are a different animal. You have to do it there, but you can only play when you're playing. And right now the Avs are doing a great job of it. We do need to take our first break of the show, so let's make sure we head over there and shout out a few of our sponsors. What if you could have reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi, and what if you could keep it at the same price for 5 whole years? That's the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Imagine Wi-Fi that makes everything in your home work together, that finds and fixes problems before you even notice them, like super intelligent Wi-Fi with a 6th sense. And that it lets you stream the game while your whole family is online doing whatever they want. All your devices working in perfect harmony for 5 whole years. And here's the best part. There's no annual contracts, there's no hidden fees, and Xfinity's best equipment comes included. Take it from me, a lot can change across the course of 5 years. Championships are won, records are broken, dreams grow bigger, but your Wi-Fi, it should be reliable, and the price should stay put. So get with Xfinity, lock in your price, and unlock the possibilities. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Select plans and restrictions apply. Of course, see more details at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. And once you've got your Xfinity internet all set up, you deserve to reward yourself a little bit with a little bit of the T-Bell, baby. Go get yourself to Taco Bell. We're super excited about our partnership with Taco Bell. Well, at least I am. I love Taco Bell over here. You can go get amazing different dishes, whether it be the quesarito. I'm a simple guy. I like the potato and cheese burrito. You don't have to make it fancy. Go get with Taco Bell and get the good stuff. Whatever you're looking for when it comes to Taco Bell, make sure you're living Moss, getting to your local locations and getting in on all of the great deals and food you can find at Taco Bell, whatever the thing you might like. Tacos, I know it's not Tuesday, but Thursday's kind of like Tuesday, right? So you could do Taco Thursday if you wanted to, whatever you're feeling from Taco Bell. Great prices for great food all the way around. Get with them. Again, go find the local Taco Bell and live Moss with, get the quesarito. It's the good one. The quesarito's the good one. Bailey, are you afraid of Vegas or Edmonton, or should you be afraid, I guess?
I think whenever you have a team with a Connor McDavid on it, there's always a little bit of fear. And I think there's also something to be said too about the work that Edmonton is putting into their season this year and trying to overturn some of their, woes in goal and things of that nature. But for the most part, they've been a fairly good team. They're not winning consistently, but they're garnering wins. That should also always be a fear. And then you said a Seattle as well. Or a Vegas.
I'm not that scared of Seattle, honestly.
No, me either. And that's why I was going to say in Seattle, not so much, but a Vegas, they're a hard-hitting hockey team, and especially like same situation. A Mitch Marner who maybe in the playoffs is not all he's cracked up to be. He can turn it on and off whenever he feels like it, but during the regular season to get them where they need to go, absolutely. Like this is a team if they can stay healthy in net and stay healthy on the blue line, they've got the offensive scoring power that they need to go out and win games. So there's I think a healthy level of fear that needs to be looked at, absolutely, when you look at either of these teams where scoring is concerned.
All right, fair enough. And, again, I may well be getting ahead of myself here. You're talking about the Avs would be playing these teams in the conference finals. If you make it that far, you've done well already, regardless of what happens to that point. So probably not something I'm willing to overthink too much on. But I did want to transition this over to the Eastern Conference as well, because who's the favorite? And before we get into the jumble of the 8 billion teams that all could make the playoffs, who's the favorite in the East right now? Is it really Tampa?
It's between Tampa and Carolina for me. If either of those teams can stay healthy, they've got two coaches who demand a lot of success behind the bench, but staying healthy is, going to be that big what if. And these are also two teams that have, done as well as they have throughout the season so far, with a lot of, injury on the back end of things as well. Carolina, that's been missing a Jacob Slavin on and off for the better half of the season, for most of the season. But Tampa, they look lights out right now. No pun-ish type things intended. It's a tough team. And we talk about, that playoff experience playing into the success of a team too. And Tampa's got a whole bunch of it. So they're going to be a gauntlet to get through, no matter who comes out of the East. The Lightning, they have, the hard hitting, they've got the defense, they've got the goaltending. Even though Vasilevsky may not be what he once was, he's still a valuable threat in net. But being able to get past some of that physicality that they possess too, it's going to be hard. Whether it's, Tampa or Carolina too. Carolina's got some decent goaltending in net, and their top line, when they're on, they are hot. So
I'm a little bit suspect of Tampa, I will say. And I don't think they're frauds or anything like that. They're a good hockey team, but I don't think they're maybe quite as good as people have been led to believe here, because they're on an 11-game winning streak. They went from a 18-13 team to a 29-13 team entirely off of this stretch. Now, you have to be a very good team to win that many games in a row. I'm not trying to take that away from them, but when you look at what Tampa's season has been, it's been one that is quite streaky. They'll go on these long winning streaks, and then they'll have these long losing streaks in a way that isn't really the case when you look at a team like the Avs. Yes, the Avs have these downswings where they'll lose a couple of games, but even in their low stretches, they're winning the vast majority of their games, whereas Tampa will win a bunch in a row, and then they'll have a stretch where they lose a bunch in a row in a way that's a bit too inconsistent for me to really, really trust them. Again, they may well be the best team in the East, but I do have a little bit of skepticism about how good they really are, or maybe how consistent they really are is a better way to put it. And as you mentioned, when I look at a team like Carolina, not only has Carolina been consistently very good this year, they've dealt with those injuries that they're going to continue to get better, assuming injury luck, through the second half of this season. So if I had to pick today, I'm probably picking Carolina as the favorite, but I agree with you that those two, Carolina and Tampa, do stand above pretty much the rest of the division. I don't know that I really believe in Detroit and Montreal as being there just yet.
They have, who are you really looking at as the biggest threat for these two teams?
Yeah.
You're looking at a Patrick Kane, a Alex DeBrincat for Montreal. I'm not all that terrified.
Cole Caulfield doesn't scare you?
Detroit. Cole Caulfield, but then who else do you have?
Yeah, they don't really
maybe
have
Elaine Hudson to help out.
Yeah,
maybe, but that's if that's the case, I don't necessarily want to call the Canadians a one-trick pony, because obviously a positive winning record, but at the same time too, like when you compare them to some of the talent out in the West, I don't know as though I'm all that threatened.
Yeah, I'm not. And maybe this is the seat of privilege that the Colorado Avalanche have, that are so far above all of these teams that you don't have a whole lot of fear in that regard. Because to be fair, when you look at excluding Colorado from this conversation, a team like Detroit has 60 points. Dallas has 63. Minnesota has 61. So they're right in there in that conversation with second and third place in the West. It's not like they're miles behind or anything, but it doesn't feel quite the same as with Dallas. And maybe some of that is just experience, like you talked about with Colorado and all the playoff experience they have, as opposed to a team like San Jose. This Detroit team hasn't made the playoffs in what is coming up on a decade now. So yeah, there's a little bit of a lack of belief on that front in a team like Detroit. Montreal's kind of been flirting with that playoff spot for a few years now, so maybe there's a little bit more there. But like you mentioned, yeah, Caulfield's scary. I personally love Nick Suzuki, but Slavkovsky has not quite ever living up to the hype of his pick. You're looking for those auxiliary pieces in Montreal. They have to do so much because they don't have the high end talents. And I know Lane Hudson's super fun on the back end too, but
I'm just looking at it. If I'm looking at a Caulfield, Suzuki, Hudson versus McCarr, McKinnon, Netches. Like I know, I know who my more threatening trio is going to be, and then looking at that depth, looking at the scoring that a Montreal has versus a Colorado, it really, again, hockey is one of those weird ones. Any team can win on any given night, but if you're looking at statistically, it's Colorado every day of the week.
No doubt about it. On a random Thursday in January, anyone who's not saying Colorado is wrong. Again, in the playoffs,
shocker,
you hit the reset button, you pick who you pick. But for the regular season, no one is in contention. Let's be honest about it. This is where the fun starts in the East. From second place in the Metro to second to last in the East is a separation of 6 points.
That's filthy. That's disgusting.
It
makes for fun hockey. It makes for an exciting, last 2 weeks in the league when you lead up to that playoffs. But if I'm a fan of a team out in the East, like, there is no sitting pretty. There is no resting. There's no like, okay, I'm comfortable where I'm at. Like, you're fighting and like tooth and nail for every single thing you're trying to scrape out of that conference, trying to get to the best spot possible. It's
funny because, every year you have the conversation of, well, if it's anybody's game, anyone can get to the playoffs. It could be any of this. And then you look at the standings most years and you're like, okay, bro, like half of these teams are not making it. But legitimately in the East, no one is out of this conversation. Columbus and the Rangers down pretty bad. It would take a lot for them to get in. But from Ottawa on up, all of those teams are legitimately in the playoff race. That's the type of season that the East is having. Who's for real, though, in this? I know I'm asking you to do the impossible, Bailey, but who of these teams do you think legitimately should be the teams to get into the playoffs?
Oh, God. I don't know. We're really going to have a frauds versus, real ones type conversation again, aren't we?
Yeah.
I don't know. As funny as I would think it would be for a Buffalo to make it in, I'm not sure I have a whole lot of belief there.
Never believe. Never believe
the Buffalo Sabres. Same thing with Boston. If I'm looking at this right now, the wild card race for me, it looks like a Toronto and a Pittsburgh. Boston can maybe squeak into that wild card 2 spot. I wouldn't be wholly surprised. But for right now, with the way things are shaping out, looking at, trends and sustainability, I don't know as though what Buffalo is doing, what they're doing right now is sustainable enough to keep them where they are. So yeah, it's a Toronto or race between Toronto, Pittsburgh, and that's where I kind of sit with that. Buffalo scrapes down. I don't think Florida has what it takes to build themselves back up this year. I think there's a little too much adversity going on for a team like them with injury. Losing Ekblad was rough on the season, and especially looking at what they did in the offseason to try to make themselves as competitive as they could to three-peat. There's not a whole lot of them, or at least there hasn't been in the first portion of the season to make that plausible for like a plausible storyline for them this season. So Toronto is kind of a shoe-in for me, but then it comes down to a Pittsburgh, a Boston, and maybe a Philadelphia squeaking in there.
I agree with you on Toronto. I think I'm more of a believer in Florida, but we can get to that after our second break of the show. Let's talk about a few more of our sponsors. The presenting sponsor of today's show is Bet365. And yes, they still have their $200 in bonus bet deal when you sign up with code DNVR365. Put $10 in your account, bet $5 on anything, win or lose to get those bonus bets. But they've got more than that to offer you too right now. With the Broncos playing in the playoffs this weekend, they have a super boost available. You can get in with Bet365 and bet on a super boost of 1 or more passing yards in the Denver versus Buffalo game. Yeah, that bet is essentially a guaranteed free money to hit. It's even money. So you can bet on that and get a bunch of money in your account, more or less. It's not technically a guarantee. Legally, I can't call it a guarantee, but it's pretty much guaranteed money. With Bet365. All it takes is 1 single yard. So even if your team doesn't start strong, you can still win some money. Get over with Bet365. Of course, it's only available with Bet365. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Select markets only, min-max wager, and fixed boost percentage applies. Super boost for single bets only. Again, get with Bet365 with a DNVR365 code. And once you've set yourself up with those successful bets, maybe store away a little bit of that money in case of an emergency, because unfortunately these things do happen. But when they do, you can get a hold of New Built Restoration and Construction. They're licensed general contractors who can help with any project, big or small, and they're available 24/7 and truly care about being there for their customer. They have over 600 reviews to prove that being true. They do all sorts of different work. Yeah, they do the repair work and things like that, but they also work on commercial projects. If you do have something that goes wrong with your home, they do fire damage, water damage, mold removal, repair services, and more. So they'll work with your insurance too to make a stressful process like it is as smooth as possible. So when that home emergency hits, go to New Built Restoration and Construction. They'll be there at newbuilt.com. That's NUBILT.com, or you can call it 720-903-4254 and let them know that DNVR sent you. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by Bet365. The East is a bloodbath. I agree with you on Toronto. I don't know that I buy Pittsburgh being any good. Obviously, Crosby and Malkin are super fun, but I don't know that team has the depth to finish the season. I don't think Philadelphia is for real. Sorry, PHLY. I don't think they are. I believe in Florida. I think getting Matt Tkachuk back is going to be a big, big difference maker for them in whenever he happens to step back into games for them. I do think that could be a difference in something like a wild card race like this. And then I don't believe in anyone beyond Florida in the standings. New Jersey has been an unmitigated disaster since losing Jack Hughes, which you can understand on the offensive side of the puck, but their goaltending has also completely shattered. And they just don't look particularly competitive far too many nights for me to take them seriously. We saw what the Avs did to Ottawa the other night. Not very good. And
even when Ottawa gets scrappy, it's not enough to drag them out of the hole they're starting to dig for themselves. Yeah.
Right. So don't know that I believe in them. And then Columbus and the Rangers, I mean, they should probably start selling if we're honest about it.
Yeah, especially looking at what the Rangers did with their season last year, to all of the moves they tried to make to, I mean, talking about digging yourself into a very large hole.
Yeah.
That's essentially what the Rangers did for themselves. So it's there. I think there's many more questions that I have about that front office as a whole and what they're kind of doing with the trajectory of that organization than is, maybe suitable for today. But no, I understand the conversation about Florida. I think what scares me for that is the conversation that I always have is all you need is a wild card 2 spot to be dangerous, right? True. You get yourself into a playoff spot, and even without home ice, like it's anybody's game. And with the style of play that a Florida Panthers play, it can become a bloodbath for anybody who comes into that matchup. And again, talking about a playoff experience team, if they get themselves into playoffs, they become entirely different team. They hit like nobody's business. They have that elite top end talent, and we've all seen what Bobrovsky is capable of in playoffs.
He turns it on,
so that can become terrifying, but they have to get to that point first. And if Matthew Tkachuk is the kind of pendulum that can swing that for them, okay, that's awesome. I feel sad for anybody who sees them in the East in the playoffs, and then whoever comes out of the West, because it definitely, it's a fun matchup, but they play a really gritty style of hockey that if you don't have the pieces to combat a lot of, you talk about those annoying pieces like a Brad Marchand, like a Matthew Tkachuk, who they're good hockey players in their own right, but even when they're not on the puck, are really, really difficult to play against in other areas of the ice. So it's, if they can turn that on and get into a playoff spot, cool. I just don't know if Matthew Tkachuk is enough for me.
He may well not be, because the East's pretty good. I know I've been harsh on New York and Columbus, but when you break it down and you look at it, the bottom 4 teams in the West are worse than the worst team in the East. Mm-hmm. Is there rhyme or reason to this? Is something in the water in the West that has just made the bottom end that much worse? Is it just the gap in the disparity from the top and bottom of the West that punishes them a little bit more? I'm just throwing ideas out there. Why do you think it is that the West has 5 teams under 500, whereas the East has 1?
I wish I could put a finger on it. You see that shift and shake every couple years. I remember a couple years when the Metro was, the gauntlet to go through. Yep. And now it's the Central, and that's just kind of how things shift as, contracts expire and, players go through their swings and different teams and things of that sort. I don't have a clear-cut answer here. All I do know is the way things have shaken out in the last year or two, and the coaches that have come through and changed some of the identities of these teams in the East, it makes them that much more dangerous. It could very well be something in the water, but the way things are rolling in the East, the way they're coaching, maybe it's travel. And the travel schedule being a lot easier out there, and especially in a condensed schedule, some teams know how to handle that out in the West and some teams don't. That could very well be part of it, but and maybe that's my answer too in the East. Like that definitely helps during a condensed schedule type situation. You hear a lot of players talk about wanting to be out in the East solely for that aspect of it, and knowing that you have better opportunities to get home to your families, and it takes less of a toll on you during a busy schedule. So I don't know, maybe that's it, but I truly have no answer other than, the teams in the West that are successful right now not only have the top end pieces, but they have that depth, as we've kind of mentioned, is, when I talked to Craig Berube before the Toronto game. He mentioned you don't get to where a team like Colorado or a team like Dallas is without the depth that you have to be a successful team. And as far as, depth goes, the three teams that we see at the top of the West are the teams with the most talent and the teams with the best depth. And you see how much success that's giving them.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easy to tell what makes a team good and hard to tell what makes a team bad. I do think it's a good point from you when you look at the bottom three teams in the West: Vancouver, Winnipeg, Calgary. All teams that perennial have some of the worst travel schedules in the NHL. Mm-hmm. Now, Colorado also has one of the worst travel schedules in the NHL every year, and they're at the top by a mile. So hard to say exactly, but definitely could play a factor in that condensed schedule like you were talking about. Bailey, the other day you asked me about the biggest surprise team in the Central Division, and I said just how bad Winnipeg has been. I want to flip the same question to you. I'm going to expand it to the entire West, though. Doesn't have to be negative necessarily, but which team is the biggest surprise for you this year in the West?
Honestly, and maybe this is just because of recency bias and whatnot, but I'm surprised with how well a Utah Mammoth has kind of kept up with the fold recently. I've always been of the mindset, and I know the Utah Mammoth on paper aren't new. They're not they're no expansion team. Yeah. Like it's a relocation type situation. But I've always been of the mindset, like the first year or two of a relocation or an expansion should be like, it's a rite of passage to suck. Like that, and that's just like fun storyline for me. Right. No, that's like, you look at what a Vegas did when they broke into the league versus a Seattle, and that's what it should be. Yeah. A Seattle is the definition of what a new team in the NHL should be. And we got that out of the Utah Mammoth for their first year. But you see what they're doing with a new name and this new identity that they have, and all of a sudden they're a competitive team, and they've got some fun players to look out for, like a Logan Cooley. I've always been a longtime lover of a Karel Vejmelka in net. But I think that's been the biggest surprise for me is, they're not superstar players by any means. They're not players that can necessarily change the tide of a team, but they're doing enough for their team, and they're getting enough production up and down their lineup to make themselves competitive and putting themselves in, that first wild card spot. Now, do I see them catching up to a Minnesota Wild? Absolutely not. But again, as we mentioned, that first wild card spot, all you need is a wild card slot to make yourself competitive in the playoffs. Then comes down to the conversation of playoff experience and things of that sort, and how sustainable is what they're doing in the regular season to what they could potentially do in the playoffs. But when you talk about surprises and where teams are ending up, Utah is the easy answer for me.
Yeah, they started out so hot and then cooled off pretty hard, and now they've kind of found sustainability, to be honest. I think what they're doing and putting themselves in that wild card conversation is one of the teams where you're like, this is legitimate. This is probably about where they should be in the standings. So if they want to get in, I mean, I wouldn't mind sparking that rivalry. The Avs can beat them in 4 in round 1. So that's perfectly fine.
It brings back to that, as much as people are maybe trying to force this Rocky Mountain rivalry situation, it'd be fun. They're close. It could happen.
Everyone always fears in Colorado the puck luck BS that they always seem to get in games against the Avs. That ain't going to happen in the playoffs. In the playoffs, they're going to find out the hard way if that's how it comes down to it.
It's a completely different game when you get to the postseason. I will preach this point until the day that I die. It's what makes a really, really good regular season team does not always make a really good playoff team. And that's something, if you're talking about puck luck, that doesn't always exist with the way playoff hockey is played.
All right, let's get into our Xfinity X-factor of the week. You can jump in with Xfinity. Our X-factor is, of course, presented by them. Xfinity, imagine that. Look, there is a small thing lurking in the NHL schedule in the West this year. And now it may not matter because of just how good the Colorado Avalanche have been. But the Avs and Dallas have only played one time this year. Yeah. It was at the start of the season. It ended up going to overtime and Dallas won. But there have been no real head-to-head previews in the full meat of the season of the two best teams in the NHL. The first one of those comes on trade deadline day, about a week after the Olympic break, 10 days or something like that after the Olympic break.
Yeah.
Is this the games that everyone has circled on the schedule? Are these the ones that everyone is waiting for this year?
Absolutely. What I think is really interesting about these situations too, and we really have no idea what these teams could look like come trade deadline day.
True.
We could be talking about two completely different versions of this team come March 6th. And that's what I find so funny is you look at how early these two teams faced off early in the season, coming down to the next time they see each other could be two entirely different versions of each other. And it's fun, but it also makes it really, really difficult to kind of game plan against too. Because no matter what this Dallas team looks like, you know they're going to be buying. You know they're going to be trying to improve themselves as much as possible to try and make themselves competitive against a Colorado Avalanche. But if we're going to talk about rivalries, like that's the biggest one out there in the NHL right now.
No doubt.
But that's what's so exciting to me is you really don't know what version of this team you're going to get, no matter who you look at come March 6th. It's very, very exciting for me, but that's what makes it so much more difficult too, is when you look at a last season where coming down to the wire, coming down to the end of the season, every single point mattered until it didn't. And you become kind of complacent with where you're at in the standings. And with the coming down to earth moment that the Avalanche are having, you start to look at those points in a bit of a new light and wondering like, okay, if a Dallas starts to get hot and we start playing them again and, oh, they're all of a sudden like still very competitive and like there's no easy game here. Like every point matters and you want to make sure you're keeping that leg up for home ice because that could mean for these two teams, especially the difference of a game.
I'd be lying if I said I was worried about Dallas catching Colorado. But if you have all of those games, if Dallas sweeps the Avs in the regular season or something, and you see that 6-point true swing, all of a sudden it gets competitive. Now, on the other hand, if the Avs win the next 3 games they face against each other, then it legitimately becomes a runaway in the Central where no one is pretty much no matter what catching the Avs. So it could definitely break either way there. But yeah, this is people are always going to question the legitimacy of a team when they're playing as well as the Avs, right? It's just no team is supposed to be this good, whether you believe the Avs have some sustainability or not here. You have to show up in those big game moments, right? This is what has defined the core of the Colorado Avalanche post-Cup has been a team that hasn't been able to show up when they absolutely needed to, whether that's losing the Seattle series in 7, whether that's coming short in the second round against Dallas, and extraneous factors, maybe more than big game stuff on that one. Being up 2-0 on Dallas with 15 minutes left in the game last year, and the Avs didn't show up for the last 15 minutes, and that's why they went home and had to stew in it and be mad about it this year. That is something that the Avs will have to prove down the stretch of this season.
You have to imagine, too, that come trade deadline day and leading up to it, they've got 2 weeks to sit and, figure something out where you're not playing, I don't want to call the Olympics not meaningful hockey, but things that aren't on your regular schedule that are going to affect playoffs. You have to imagine that some of those conversations are coming up as they're making trade calls.
Yep.
Logan O'Connor cannot be the only difference maker in your depth. He can't be the only guy giving you some of that depth heading into a playoff run. Looking at Logan O'Connor being one of your best point production guys through a playoff stretch, isn't great. Like, you'd love to see it from him, right?
But it's a detriment to the rest of your lineup. Yeah.
Right. Now, what Colorado has this year that they didn't have last year, and being like one of those jump guys, is a Gavin Brindley. And you hope you can get a little bit more of a spark during playoff series out of a guy like him. So I may be putting too much faith in a guy like him, but let's be honest, when haven't I done that this season? I love what Gavin Brindley's brought to this lineup. So like there's that aspect of it too. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a team that I think you have to have those conversations about what you're doing in the regular season and how that translates to a playoff game. If I'm looking at this Colorado Avalanche team right now, I love the pace at which Nathan MacKinnon is producing. I love him playing next to a guy like Martin Necas. But ultimately, I don't know, as though playing against some of these harder hitting teams, that I'm looking at Colorado being all that competitive.
Sure.
As far as, a physicality game goes, and some of those different
they can win with the C
makers.
game, right? Like, they don't have to be.
Right. And so playoffs mean a little bit more than that. C games don't always get you to the point that you need to with the way things run. When refs are putting the whistles away, or when they're pulling them out, way more than necessary. You never know what kind of game you're going to get, but you do know it's going to be faster paced than what you're used to in a regular season game. You know it's going to be harder hitting, and you need to be able to prepare for that. And that's something that I think Colorado has not been prepared for in the last couple of years, and that has to be part of the conversation as they approach trade deadline day.
I think that's fair. We've talked a lot about some of the holes in their lineup that we believe they need to solve on deadline day, and that's not going to change from here till then unless they actually go out and make a move. So that will come down to it, and obviously we'll see what things look like when they get into those games against Dallas later in the year. But as it stands right now, it's hard to be too mad at a team that can win with their C game, even if it is against weaker opponents, even if it is against that. That's what good teams are supposed to be able to do, and the Avs are accomplishing that. So our stream might have had its C game today, so we are truly a
Colorado Avalanche podcast
in spirit and mind, for sure on that one. If you want to help support us, maybe fix some of our issues, consider becoming a YouTube member. Gives us a couple of bucks. It's a cool way to show some support. You get emojis in chat. You also get access to a bunch of our behind-the-scenes content here on YouTube if you are into that type of thing. Or if you really like us, consider becoming a diehard. We have a great deal going on right now to become a diehard here. Gets you access to all of our written content from Bailey and AJ, if that's your stuff. Which it should be your stuff. You're going to want to go read all of that. But you also get a free shirt when you sign up for your membership. You get a bunch of other cool stuff. You get access to our Discord. You get discounts at the bar if you come in. And then you get priority access to all of our events, which, by the way, we have 2 more takeovers this year. They're not sweet takeovers, but we have a couple coming up that you're going to want to be a part of to come enjoy an Avalanche hockey game live in person with the DNVR crew. So go check that out at events@thednvr.com. Great way to be part of the community and enjoy some Avs hockey. Bailey, we're kind of winding down the show here, but who do you think is a dark horse in the West? Again, all of this conversation comes back to Avs, Dallas, Minnesota, and then we have this wild card race. Who's a sneaky good team, do you think, in the West that could cause upsets?
When I look at this, I think I'm looking mainly at an Anaheim Ducks or a Blackhawks type team too, and both of which have had
for sure.
Healthy Blackhawks has to be. But if you're getting a healthy Connor Bedard and you're getting some of the depth that's been producing the way that the depth has for a Blackhawks team, they're definitely making themselves known in a conversation, given that they're 4 points behind the San Jose Sharks. It absolutely could be it's a very plausible conversation for me. And then we obviously see, the ups and downs that the Ducks have had this season. If they can find a little bit of consistency, that's maybe a, hugely terrifying team for me.
We all knew the Ducks start was too good to be true. And now they've had this portion that's probably too bad to be true. They're realistically somewhere in the middle of those. And you trust a coach like Quenneville, who has all the experience that he does, to figure that out and balance that team out by the end of the season, for sure.
Do you think Nashville Predators keeps up the pace that they are?
They're fake. They're definitely fake. It's a little weird, though, right? Nashville spent probably 100 games, all of last season and then the first portion of this season, having one of the worst PDOs any hockey team has ever had. There were stretches of that 100 games where they were genuinely shooting like 3% at 5-on-5, which was ridiculous. Like, no team is that bad in the NHL. They were just getting wildly unlucky. So are they better than the absolute dumpster fire bottom feeder team? Yes. Do I think they're legitimately good enough to be a playoff team? No. You don't. All of the aging guys have had all of the problems that you were afraid of. On top of all of the bad luck, Stamkos is barely a serviceable NHLer at this point in a lot of ways. Yeah, every 10th game he can pop off and score some crazy goals, but the consistency is no longer there. You have guys like Ryan O'Reilly who they're having to slide down their lineup, who really spent his whole career probably playing a little bit above his head in the lineup and now just can't do it anymore. There's just one too many pieces that are a problem for that Nashville team for me to believe there's any consistency in their ability to win.
No, I'm right there with you. I think if you can get a UC Saros kind of turning it on a little bit, maybe,
that would be the saving.
But that's gotta be the saving grace for this team, is you've got to get a Saros going on a more consistent level. Because I mean, they've obviously got, enough talent. I don't know as though I believe in a whole lot of it, but they've got enough to make themselves at least somewhat competitive for that second wild card spot. But it's going to take a lot from that back end to, I think, save that team.
Yep. Okay. I think we are good there to wrap this up. I know it's a little bit of a weird show day. If you're listening on audio, you probably didn't even notice. But yeah, if you watch this live, keep an eye out for the full recorded video of the podcast. We should have the first segment included on that. But we appreciate everyone sticking with us, even through all the technical difficulties. It is back to game day tomorrow. So you know the drill there. Pre-game, watch along, post-game. Come and join us for that. We appreciate y'all. This has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by Bet365.